You put that light back on, that light off, okay?
Yeah, because like it goes backward.
All right. A good vach. Tonight I want to share with you the story of Refael. The Alter Rebbe had a Chossid who was named Refael. He was the Parnas Seir. He was the president of the Jewish community in Vilna. And the Vilna at that time, this is a story, it goes back to the time of the Alter Rebbe, and on the Alter Rebbe's anniversary of passing, this Chavdal Tevis this past Friday. So I want to share with you the incredible story how he became a Chossid of the Alter Rebbe. So he was very, thank you, Rosie, come here. He was very respected, and he was a president of the community, very wealthy. And in that time, the Alter Rebbe had incredible opposition. This week was also the yahrzeit of the Rambam. Maimonides' yahrzeit is on the 20th of Tevis. Alter Rebbe's yahrzeit is on the 24th of Tevis. And actually, the Maimonides had even more fierce opposition than the Alter Rebbe. The Rambam's books were burnt in public. People thought that he was trying to go against God, against Torah. And so it was very trying time, because here the Rambam was actually bringing the Jewish people this incredible gift, but people thought that this was heresy. And a similar thing happened many times in history when some incredible new revelation of Torah came about. There was met with this fierce opposition. So Refael, there's two events that happened to him that inspired him to become a Chossid Alter Rebbe. This story was shared by the Rebbe Rashab, and is printed in the book A Treasure of Chassidic Tales by Rabbi Zevin. Rabbi Zevin may have heard this directly from the Rebbe Rashab. I don't think it's printed in the Sfarim that we have from the Rebbe Rashab, as far as I know. But Rabbi Zevin may have heard this either directly from the Rebbe Rashab or from a Chassid who had heard it from the Rebbe Rashab. It doesn't say when the Rebbe Rashab said this. But he did say that this is directly from the Rebbe, and therefore an authentic, definitely, the story which has a real strong foundation. So here are the two events that happened to him. There was a Chossid whose son-in-law disappeared. For 3 years, he couldn't find his daughter's husband, and he was really stuck. So he took his daughter, and they went together to the Alter Rebbe, and they came to the Alter Rebbe, and they asked the Alter Rebbe, what should we do? We can't find my wife's husband. He's disappeared. The Alter Rebbe said they should go to Vilna, and they should speak to Refael, the president of the community, and the Parnas Seir, and he will help them. So when he left the Alter Rebbe's room, the Chassidim went quickly to get together the funds to help them travel to the Alter Rebbe, to Vilna, which is far away. And when they arrived in Vilna, so she comes to the home of Refael. He wasn't there at the time. He was in the synagogue. And his wife opens the door. And his wife says, how can I help you? She says, well, I was sent here by the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe said that your husband may know where my husband is. So she was very upset. And she's like, my husband, she thought this was the most ridiculous thing in the world. The Alter Rebbe, who they called the head of the Kat, they called the Alter Rebbe the head of this fringe group that was against Torah. The head of the fringe group, he told you to come here to Vilna, and he said you should speak to my husband to find your husband. This is the most ridiculous thing. Get out of my house. But she didn't give up. And she said, I'm not leaving until I find my husband. And she came back later when he came home. And she said, I'm not leaving here. You have to tell me where my husband is. So finally he told her, just to calm her down, it doesn't take 1 day to find your husband. Meanwhile, stay in the Hektish. Hektish was, in those days, used to have like a place where the homeless people in the city would stay. It's called the Hektish. Hektish literally means the holy place, but it was not a comfortable place. It was where the Jews would provide for the homeless. They had this little house where they would allow the homeless people to stay there, and that's they told her to stay in the Hektish. So she stayed in the Hektish, which of course wasn't so comfortable, and she came back every single day asking Refael, Did you find my husband? Did you find my husband? And this became a very widely spoken about throughout Vilna. In the language of Rabbi Zevin, this added fuel to the fire of the argument that people had against the Alter Rebbe. People had heard all kinds of crazy things about the Alter Rebbe that were being spread, lies that were being spread by the Alter Rebbe's detractors. But here there's a fresh story that everyone saw firsthand. The Alter Rebbe is telling this lady, this poor lady who can't find her husband, this Aguna, she should come here to find her husband. It's ridiculous. Poor, this lady is really suffering. Why would he do that? It reinforced whatever they had heard about the Alter Rebbe. So the constable or the head of the police would often bring Refael Falls to the police station to identify various people who were taken to custody. The reason you bring them to the police station is because in those days, if someone was traveling without documents, they would get in Vilna. The police in Vilna would arrest them. They didn't have your documents. If they went in order, they would be arrested. And very often there would be Jews who were arrested also without documents. And a mayor of Falls would come as the head of the community. He would come to either ransom them or to identify them. And so the head of the police station would often call him. The head of the police station would often call the mayor to come there to identify whoever was taken into custody. Perhaps he knows. So he comes to the police station, and each person is requested to say their name and where they come from. So the men all announce their names, and then one guy says, "I am Yankel, and I'm from Lodge," let's say, wherever city it was. And he recognized that this is the name of the city where this woman is from. And maybe this is her husband. Maybe it just hit him. Maybe it's possible. So he took him out of custody, and he brought him to this woman. And before introducing them, he asked her at halacha mandates to ask the woman if different signs, different birthmarks or whatever, to determine if this is indeed her husband. And she did, and it was her husband. And they arranged right away in Vilna to give her. The man gave her a get, and she was freed from this state of being in a good. So the mayor was very impressed with the story, but he thought, it could be a coincidence. Coincidences happen too. So he didn't become a chassid, but he was impressed. A little while after this, a chassid was visiting Vilna. It was Thursday. He arrived on a Thursday, and he goes to the synagogue, and he starts learning Torah. And he studies Torah all night long, literally. The caretaker, the shamash of the synagogue, sees this guy studying Torah all night long, and he sees how the guy takes out of his bag a piece of bread and some herring. So he tells the guy, he says, "Listen, this town is. I see that you're not just a regular beggar. You're really into the Torah. I saw you study Torah all night long, and this town has a lot of people that like to do kindness, especially with Torah scholars. So can we invite you? Let's say l'chaim for a baruch for full kreva shlema. L'chaim baruch hakayim and Chana Rivka. L'chaim for kreva shlema. L'chaim levracha."
Amen. Good luck, everybody.
Rosie, right? You said Tillim for him before?
Okay. Thank you, Rosie.
So he says to him, "Why don't you come to stay in someone's house for Shabbos? So you can eat bread and herring the whole Shabbos. It's Shabbos. You should stay at someone's house." "I don't want to. I have my own things. Please leave me alone." But the shamash really felt bad for him, and he went over to one of the wealthier people in town who always invited guests. He said, "Why don't you go invite the guy?" So he invited the chassid. The chassid says, "No, thank you. It's very kind of you, but I'm okay." But again, this guy also felt bad for him. This guy's going to stay a whole Shabbos eating his black bread and herring. So he went to the rabbi of the synagogue, and together with the rabbi, they went over to the guy again, to this chassid again, and they said, "Please, isn't that the way to spend Shabbos? The guy's inviting you for Shabbos. You should stay at his house." So the chassid said, "Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll come eat at your house, but I want to stay in the synagogue." All right, that was the compromise they came to. and he went to this wealthy man's house. And the wealthy man was also somewhat knowledgeable in Torah, and he was very impressed with this guest. This guest was a Chossid, the Alter Rebbe. He was very knowledgeable, and he was very impressive. He knew a lot, and the wealthy man realized that some different kind of merchandise this guy has, and some different kind of appreciation for Torah. He's very, very touched. So after the Friday night meal, they say the after blessing. At the end, after the after blessing, you know what the guy does, Rosie? I'll tell you what he does. Go like this. Oi. That's what happens. Oi. All right. But the same thing happens again after the Shabbos meal by day. After the Shabbos meal, the wealthy man discusses Torah with him, and then they say the after blessing. And again, after the after blessing, again, what does he say? Guess what he says? Oi. Then they have the shabbat meal together. They have the shabbat meal, and they eat together, and it's wonderful. And they talk to Torah, and they say the after blessing. Guess what he says again? You won't believe what he says again. Oi! And then they have Mlav Malka. Shabbos is over, and they have Mlav Malka, and again they talk to Torah, and again he's very impressed. And then they do the after blessing. Guess what he says again? Oi! He says oi again 4 times. I know, the first time maybe he didn't like the fish, didn't like the, but 4 times every Shabbos, oi. So the man says to him, listen, I'm just your guest, but something's bothering you. It says in the Torah, da'aga b'leiv ish yisechana. If you have a worry in your heart, you should share it to someone else who cares. I care. Tell me what's going on. He says, you can't really help me. I'll tell you what's going on. My partner and I were accused of a crime that we did not commit, but we're accused. And I'm facing a hard time in Siberia for 3 years. I'm going to be sent in exile to Siberia for 3 years. I appealed the case to the regional court of this region, Vilna, and the regional court rejected my appeal. And now the court case has been sent to Petersburg, to the capital city. And it doesn't look so good. And I'm really worried. I may have to go to Siberia for 3 years of hard labor. So the man tells him, the guest tells him, I want to tell you something. I am a Chossid Alter Rebbe. I'm from my advice to you is go right away to Liyashna, ask the Alter Rebbe for his blessing and for his advice, and you will be helped. That's what he tells him. So this was like telling him, to fly to the moon or something, because the Alter Rebbe was known in Vilna as, public enemy number 1. So for him to tell him go to the Alter Rebbe was out of the question. But he asked his partner, your partners are both to be accused together. What do you think? Should we go to Vilna? We should go to Vilna. What do you think? So his partner says, this sounds like going out of the frying pan into the fire. I mean, going for 3 years in hard labor, we come back home afterwards. The people here, we went to the Alter Rebbe, we're going to get we'll become ostracized. We'll become ostracized from a community because the Alter Rebbe's, unfortunately, the Bezdin, the Jewish court in Vilna, issued a proclamation. No one should have anything to do with the Chassidim. So this will really be a bad thing for us. I don't think it's a good idea. But they were both friendly with Mayor Foles, the president of the community, and they decided we'll ask Mayor Foles what he thinks. So they asked Mayor, what do you think? And Mayor didn't hesitate for a moment, says you should travel there, go there. Apparently he was touched by the first story, but he didn't become a chas out there, but he was touched. So he's told them, go there. They come to Liyashna. They travel to Liyashna. They listen to him. They travel to Liyashna. Of course, they didn't tell anybody where they were going. They went to Liyashna before heading to Petersburg. And they asked for an audience with Alter Rebbe. The audience was granted. And the Alter Rebbe tells them, when they come to Yechidus, a teaching from the Gemara. The Gemara says, Malchusa da'ara ke malchusa d'rkiyah. The kingdom, the human kingdom, a human king, is similar to the heavenly king. The human king is like Hashem. So he told them, you guys look like you're Torah scholars. You learn Torah, you learn Gemara. Tell me, what do you think this means? How is a human king like a heavenly king? By the way, if you hear a noise in the background, just ISIS, don't worry. Anyway, so a human king is like a heavenly king. So what do you think it means? So they don't know what it means. The Alter Rebbe says it says in this week's Torah portion, Parashat Shmos, it says Zeh Shmi La'olam, Zeh Zichel De'Vader. It says this is my name forever. The word forever in the Torah is missing the letter Vav. So the Alter Rebbe says, and the Gemara says the word La'olam also should be read as to hide, Halimeo, hide his name. How should you hide Hashem's name? The way you should hide it is Hashem's name is written one way, and it's read a different way. Hashem's name is written in one way, it's read a different way. His name is written Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey. And the name Hashem's name is read Aleph Dal Nun Yud. Hashem's name is written in one way and it's read a different way. Remember, Rose, you read the Yud and Yud together, and I told you it wasn't Hashem always say Hashem's name, but it's written a different way, right? So Hashem's name is written one way, is read differently. So it's just like you can't say Hashem's name, so to a human king, when you're in their presence, you can't say their name. You can't say the king's name. Okay. And they're waiting like for the punchline. They're here for a serious situation. They're accused of a crime and they have to go to hard labor. They're waiting for like a blessing, advice, nothing. That was it. So they leave the Alter Rebbe's presence and they are very, very dejected. Why did they come all this way? What is the whole point of this? This was. It's certainly true what people say about the Kat, people say about the Alter Rebbe and his Chassidim, that he answered them in the language of the Gemara, Leibin Dara Deuna, something which is totally ridiculous. Does nothing to do with what's going on. So they're very dejected, and they went to Petersburg. In Petersburg, they sought the advice of various lawyers. Various lawyers that they spoke to said that there's nothing really you could do. This is a serious matter, and it doesn't look like there's anything that we could say for you in court that would be beneficial. But one of the lawyers said there's something that I suggest to you. You can go. It's a long shot. You could try this. There's a park, and in this park, the Minister of Justice takes a walk in this park every day. Why don't you go directly to the Minister of Justice, who oversees all the courthouses in Petersburg, and you could directly ask him to free you. All right. So they bribed the guard of the park, and they can't come to the park, and they're hoping to see the Minister of Justice. But instead of the Minister of Justice coming to the park, the Minister of Justice doesn't come to the park that day. Instead of the Minister of Justice, the Minister of Education comes to the park. And they don't know which minister is which. They run over minister, please, it's not true. We didn't do anything. Please absolve us from our case. We didn't do anything wrong. We're going to be sent to Siberia for 3 years. We didn't do anything wrong. Please. And he's like, sorry, guys. I know you think I'm the Minister of Justice. I'm not. I'm Minister of Education. I can't help you. Okay. They leave the park dejected. And then the Minister of Education, Chapsach, you remember something, and he calls over the guard of the park, and he says, get those Jews to come back here. And the guard of the park is very frightened, because the guard of the park thinks that he's going to get in trouble for letting in these civilians, not just civilians, but Jews, into this royal park. He thinks that the Minister of Education must be upset at him. That's why he wants the Jews to come back. But he runs after the Jews, and the two Jews, they come back, and they're also frightened. Why does the Minister of Education calling them back? What they do wrong? The Minister of Education says, listen, I have a time that I meet the king. I meet the Tsar, and the Tsar and I have conversations, and we just had a conversation actually about your Talmud. The Tsar had heard that in your Talmud it says that a human king is just like the God, just like the divine king. So you want to know what that means. What's the similarity between him and God? So right away they realized that this was why the Alter Rebbe had given them this cryptic message. It was for this exact moment. So they told this Minister of Education exactly what the Alter Rebbe said, that just like you cannot mention the name of Hashem, you also cannot mention the name of the Tsar in his presence. Minister of Justice liked it. Minister of Education liked it. And he said, I will share this with the Tsar. And if the Tsar likes it, I'm sure I could do something for you. Sure enough, he shared it with the Tsar. The Tsar liked it. And the Tsar spoke to their judge, and they were off the hook. So they came back to Vilna, and they shared this with the mayor of Falls, and that's what inspired the mayor of Falls to become a Chossid the Alter Rebbe. That's the story how he became a Chossid. There's one other story about a mayor of Falls, which, by the way, we have documents about the mayor of Falls, his own accusation. The time when the Alter Rebbe was imprisoned, there was also many Chassidim who were interrogated, and it was recently discovered in Russia the various files of those who were interrogated. We have the mayor of Falls tick his interrogation, Anyways, Refael is a story about him. Not sure exactly the meaning of the story. I'm not sure the details of the story. This is the way I heard the story. This is the way the story is published. Refael was once traveling, and as he's traveling, one of his tzitzis falls off his garment. So he didn't want to continue traveling because he doesn't have tzitzis. I'm not sure if this is the correct thing to do or not. This is the way the story is told. The Gemara says you shouldn't walk without tzitzis, but seemingly if you're not enough tzitzis anyways, it doesn't seem that you're losing anything by traveling to get the tzitzis, but this is the way the story is told. He didn't have tzitzis, so he says, I'm not going to leave here. I don't have tzitzis. I'm going to wait until I get tzitzis. And he stays on the side of the road, hoping that someone will pass by to give him tzitzis, because the language of the Gemara, there are different opinions about the interpretation of this, but the language of the Gemara is a person should never go for 4 ames. 4 ames is either 6 feet or 8 feet without tzitzis. So it could be that's one opinion about this. You shouldn't even move without tzitzis. I know Rabbi Shalom Rabashkin, when he was in prison and they took off his tzitzis, he refused to move without wearing his tzitzis. Could be this is something that people do to be extra scrupulous about mitzvahs. Anyways, so he refused to move. A guy comes traveling by with a wagon. He screams, hey, stop, Rabbi, stop. And he says, listen, I need strings. He says, I have a whole wagon over here. I'm full of stuff. You think I'm going to open up all the packages to try to get you some strings? He says, what would you possibly give me that would make me want to stop over here? So Refael says, I'll give you whatever you want. Just please stop and eat tzitzis. Would you give me a ruble? He says, yeah, sure, of course I give you a ruble. You think I'll stop for just a ruble? So he offered him more money and more money and more money until he offered him all the money he had. The guy should stop and give him tzitzis. And the guy actually had some strings, and he gave him the strings, and he tied up the tzitzis. And shortly afterwards, that's the story. He got the tzitzis. He lost a lot of money, gave him all the money that he had at the time, and he got the tzitzis. Shortly afterwards, Refael was in an audience with the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe gave him all the money back, and he told him the person that you met was Eliyahu Navi, was Elijah the prophet, who had come to test you to see how careful you'll be for the mitzvah of what? Which mitzvah? Mitzvah of tzitzis. Bottom line is, the story expresses how a Yid decides to do something, it opens a door, and always comes back to you. But as we're celebrating the Hilula, the anniversary of passing of the Alter Rebbe, the Rebbe said these words. He said that the Alter Rebbe, on the day of his passing, he caused salvation to come to this world, and especially for those who learn from his teachings, especially for those who send him a letter ask for a blessing. So the Rebbe said, by Chassid gathering together and honoring the Alter Rebbe and discussing teachings of the Alter Rebbe, that itself is like a request for a blessing to the Alter Rebbe and causes special salvation. So let's, guys, together, let's say l'chaim for a Baruch HaKoyin ben Chana Rivka. He has to go through an operation this week, this coming Thursday. It's very, very serious stuff, but nothing serious for the Eibusher. For the Eibusher, it's all gelechter, it's all nothing. L'chaim Baruch HaKoyin ben Chana Rivka, v'rafua kreva shlema, if a nisi legamri l'mayla derech hateva, the way that Hashem knows how to do it. The way Hashem knows how to do it. Hashem knows how to do it. Hashem knows how to do it. Should be if nisi legamri. But Baruch has incredible bitachon, and bitachon is a keli for the miraculous brachas. Baruch, I'll tell you one teaching. I know this teaching comes from Chossid somewhere. You say in that in Psalm 93, it says, "Greater than the sound of the many waters, greater than the sound of many waters, Adir b'amorim Hashem." Hashem is higher than the sound of the many waters, ravaging waters. So Chassidus says the ravaging waters is the sound of nature. Nature is very loud. Nature is so loud. Nature says it has to be this way. It can't be any other way. It's very loud voice. So mikoilis mayim ramadirim mishpereyam, louder than the sound of the waters, and louder than the sound of everyone is eating ices and chopping into their cups. Louder than the sound of many waters is Hashem is above the sound of nature. And Hashem makes miracles happen. And he has to have bitachon in Hashem, that Hashem will help, that he should be gesund and stark, and beyond whatever the many waters say. Let's watch the Living Torah this week. Menachem, please put on the Living Torah. Amen.
The year Tovshin Chov Gimel was a special year on the Lubavitch. It was the 150th year from the passing of the Alter Rebbe. And the Rebbe made a big, as we would call a big shturim, a big fuss about it. Dalet Tevis was Sunday. Shabbos, we got message. The Rebbe is going to farbrengen tonight at 10:25. King Bata Shabbos, Rome was there. The Rebbe walked in, but the Rebbe was white, pale. We could see that he's in another world. And he sat down and looked around. There was no l'chaim. Usually he would start with l'chaim. He just started off saying those words.
Der Rebbe, der Nossi schreibt, dass gewiss habe jem ha-Hilule, der Baal ha-Hilule, Mele Rachmim Rabbi, war der Sidi mit ihre Weiber und mit den Kindern. Und das ha-Seres Rachmim Klolis. Und dich Sidi, was sie machen, der Motakwi, Sidi Ma'alim Torah, in Terrasse shel Baal ha-Hilule, mit chassidischen farbrengen, wie dort ist ha-Seres Rachmim Rabbi Miyochedes, for Madose der Pidje Nefesh was der Chsidim der lang in dem Baal ha-Hilule. Machen wir das nicht. Machen wir das nicht.
The Alter Rebbe's Nig usually was sung at the end of the farbrengen. Here, this was in the beginning of the farbrengen. Everyone felt in a different world. You basically felt that the Alter Rebbe himself is sitting here. And then he said a maimer. Now we know a maimer is a Chassidic discourse that the Rabbein would say, but they would speak a lot and say all kinds of different torah. But a maimer was something very special. The Rebbe would say a maimer with closed eyes. He would say a maimer with a special tune or tone, as we could call it, special style of saying it. And this was, everyone would stand up by a maimer. And the Rebbe started it at the moment that the Histalkus of the Alter Rebbe happened, close to 10:30.
In Mason, Rose Taylor, Rabbi Moshe Levin, Bekirbe. Da Leda sat Philo is in Yona, Chelas Ahalo. Or Kishi is Benin, Bemechet, in Hasogel Kus, was Odem, Otwiler Hom. Da Soges Hoamitis, und der Klee, Hameche, Liebe, kon das nicht Mechel, sein kon das nicht vernehmen. A maimer
by the Rebbe usually would take 30 minutes and an hour, sometimes 30, sometimes 40, some 45, maybe even up to an hour. This time the maimer took 4 or 5 minutes. That's all. It's from the short Maimorim of the Alter Rebbe. And then the Rebbe started talking about the time on the clock of when the Alter Rebbe passed away to do things according to that time.
Weil Pi was Lifierach, weiß man, dass die Lules, wie sie gewähren, bei allen Nisim, bei sie schon bei ihm. Mir gefühlt aber nicht, aber man soll das bei Jichud erzählen, die schon, wenn sie gewähren. Man schenkt ihm, wenn er geht zu der Lule von dem alten Reben, mir sagt, da was der Xaviat Kedisch. Von dem Zemach Zedek, was schreibt nicht nur Biklolis, als gewähnt bei Mitzoi Shabbos Kedish Parshe Shmeis, wo da steht sich echt in der Hagdomeli Shulchan Aruch von Bnei Hagoyin HaMechaber, nur schreibt tegen die Shoah, dass gewähnt, die Kachatzeis Shoah Yudalef und das gewähnt bei Nacht ähnlich auf Dalet Tevis. Wo der von Gufe, was mir verschreibt tegen die Shoah, das Gufe Haichoche, als etwas sie da in der Ruf anunter, Achilot legabe Shar Shoah Sayem.
Then the Rebbe made a siyum on Tanya. Everyone thought that this farbrengen, this is the farbrengen of Chavdal Tevis. And it was very special farbrengen. The next day, about 12 o'clock at night, I get a knock on the door. A very close friend of mine comes knocking on the door, says there will be a farbrengen in a few minutes. So you can imagine, I ran straight to 770. Now this time the farbrengen was a complete different mood than the farbrengen the night before. Completely different. The Rebbe was very freilach, very happy. What the Rebbe did at this farbrengen, he made a siyum, a hadret, on Shulchan Aruch. He spoke about giving tzedakah. And the Rebbe said, the tzedakah that he's talking about, that from now on that people should give in honor of Chavdal Tevis, should be money to print more of the Alter Rebbe's books, of the Alter Rebbe's Svarim, given in the numbers of 150, whether it should be dollars or nickels or dimes, that should be in a cheshbon of 150.
Mir erzählt auf dem Baal Shem Tov, was nicht gewollt hat, beim so nächtigen Geld in Stub. Bechlall das Hanukkah und Fleckte voneinander teilen, die ganze Geld hat nicht in der gehabt, in Ort beim Krieg der Cheshbon an Nefesh, der Krieg mit Shalamite, Schas hat mir Wallwo gewinnt, als liegt Geld in Stub. Bechlall das Hanukkah, was in ganzen Hepech, Minig Amerika, da sind sie gewinnt, als ersten Tag haben an der Bankbüchel. In Civic Account, dann noch da wo Geld was soll liegen, in Astam Account, dann noch da wo Geld was soll liegen, in Azok, was keiner soll davon nicht wissen, dann noch davon haben in Safe Basunder, für den wir sollen nicht davon zahlen, davon kommt nicht. Und dann noch ist da eine Life Insurance, eine Fire Insurance, eine Car Insurance, eine Building Insurance, eine Colorley Insurance, weil das ist echt Geld, haben wir das haben. Aber wenigstens einmal kommen sich verdienen, bei der Gehe zum Summen, haben sie alles ledig in die Kirchen, es Lavdavke, Shabbos war Nacht, nur in der Mitte Mittwoch, und man soll sich verlassen, aber ist damit dann noch der Rebisch der Helfen, als sie zukommen, kam auf Jom im Kochen. Und der Rike, man geht zu die alle, zu die alle in Joni Zachos ist, als am meisten hohe Rike, wir haben vielleicht gesagt, bei syrische Farbrengen, Jida war Groschen.
The Rebbe put his hands in his pockets, took out whatever money he had. There was a manila envelope laying on the Rebbe's table. That's where the money went. And then the Rebbe said something new, something also very interesting. He said that he wants that everybody should learn this year, extra 150 hours in the year. Imagine 150 hours throughout the year. That in addition to all the time that you're learning anyway, you should add 150 hours. And I remember, Taka, that whole year, we were the Bachrim, other people also, would go around with a little booklet in their pocket to mark down whenever you had an extra half hour to sit down to learn. And said you should do it. Learn in the Torah of the Alter Rebbe. So we would learn in Shulchan Aruch, learn in the Maimer of the Alter Rebbe, the Torah of the Alter Rebbe. Mamash, you could feel it in the air, this whole concept that this is a special year of 150 years from the Stalkers of the Alter Rebbe.
This production is made possible through the generosity of the members of the GEM Foundation.
Die Scheiches von den alten Reben miteinander mit sich Muvon und Poschutz von Kamo Sipurim und von Kamo Inyonim. Nächste Pavdruf, was jeder von sie der gewähren an Nossi Bedere und jeder von sie gewähren an Pesach Bedere. Was Leere ist man gegangen Biyomov und Bismane. Und dann noch geht man da die Droche, Wascher, Irone, Venilche, Berchesa. Nesach Zelle Wort in der Tere Shella Achrise, wo da sieht man sich sei bei dem Rambam und sei bei dem alten Rebbe. Danach gefindt man a Scheiches Miyuchedes und Gosche. Was bitas mir sagt Rambam, ist alle Menschen bei Jiden, was Jide da verbunden mit Torah. Und es versucht jeder Linie, wie spiegelt sich das ab in Torah, bitas mit der Monte Rambam, ist nicht mehr, fragt sich noch, lechele Reish, wegen seiner Skonis Ziburis. Und a Forces Ayadus, und Lahamid Adas al-Kilo, was in Drufot sich umgetan, meistens nicht flohen und nicht zuris adblikeit. Schaß aber mit trefft an jeden Abend Teira. Lachas kam a Yeshiva-Boche, allein mit Teira bekatnusse. Weiß nicht wegen die alle Protein, weiß aber a Dover Bor, wegen des Vorhin von dem Ram. Wo das Vorhin von dem Rambam mit der kam es vor ihm, und das war seine mit Fulsam Lakei, wie du Lakei, ist das dem Rambam, wie wird angerufen, der Sefer mit Pashtus, aber sagt Rambam, meint man, dass der Mischne Tere war Rambam, der Yadach Zoko, und noch geht man auf Frage, was tut er bei Negei, zu Avedas hat Philo, zu Aschkofe Seilon bei Negei, zu Unionen von Regische Belev, hat man sich ihnen von mehr an der Woche. Und man sagt, den alten Reben, oder wie man vielleicht ruft den Empfehlen der Rav, der Mond man sich lechele Reish, was ist eine Sphori, Shulchan Aruch und der Tani. Was bedarf sich nicht haben, kein Biur und Pirush, was jeder Shulchan Aruch ist das Behessen zu Halachis, und das ist der Sefer Rambam, und danach was der Sefer Atani, wie der alte Rebbe alleine mit Weih, in der Hagdom und in Geres Hamlakheit, was das in den Sinas Eitzes, so als die, was stehen bis Feikus, es sei seinen Mevuchen, Vechol. Okay, du, die Snagdus, was gewähnt auf dem Rambam, bis in der Nefe noch mehrere, die Jone stelle Tiefe, wie sie gewähnt beim alten Rennen. Okay, du, in der Igel ist zu Tshuvis von dem Rambam, die Igel ist zu Tshuvis von Bnei Deire, und danach als Lot mit Barre gewähnt, obwohl sich Schodin, und die Snagdus in Mevura und Mevusas, ich hasse wie Schollen, die Jore Mischas, Jode, Vesragle, sagen etwas an gegen dem Rambam. Afal Piva, der Reish von Teres Hamusser Bedeire von dem Rambam. Bei der Bidosche Lachrise, ist sich Jodu, wie sie gewähnt, frei sein Jachas zum Rambam, und danach war sehr gesehen, und mir war gewähnt die Minien, und hat nicht geruht, bis hat mir war gewähnt die Minien. Und hat das nicht gekonnt ruhen, und hat das mir war gewähnt und gekommen, la Maskono Amitis, und hat das mit Fasten gewähnt. Und geworden von Otadi, wo sie seine geworden von der Chassidim, Achinil Hovi, von dem Rambam, Afal Piva, demult hat noch nicht genutzt, hat dem Teer. Was das haben, Blachatchile bewohnt, die was bescheiter, mit Adinjoni, Maschenka, Namokim, Laharik besehen. Seien sie nicht gewöhnt, mit der, mit dem Balschemte, oder Alderes, der mit dem alten Reben Bismane, haben sie gleich bewohnt, Taimim, Tamom, Beziehung. Wo demut ist a Klall in Halacha. Aber ich habe da a Halacha, was a Gseire, was mir geht hier und sie sagt hier zusammen mit dem Tag. I demut ist a Halacha. Aber ich habe Bottel der Tag mit Bottel der Halacha. Und die Koschken der Kalva Chemer, als der Nordora Reis gewesen. Okay, du von Kamesi Puri noch von dem alten Reben, noch bis Mann von dem alten Reben, was ist geworden der Schole, zwischen die mit den alten Reben, was mir hat viele, sie nicht Masken gewöhnlich Shitose und mit dem Bier Apostel, da sie gewöhnt, mir wusste es Apatan und Apachschash, was in Isbadet geworden, als sehen, lege ich sehen, ich bederich mir mehr, Tela ist nagels. Wo das beweist Techet und die Rolle Meise, auf nicht voll werden, alle Chele nicht verstandig, was sie gewähren, ist man am alten Reben. Und der, was hat gesagt, befen kach wie kach, ist als sie gewähren, bis man Ramba. Und danach weiß man, was sie geworden, der Hemmschach Joni. Und man weiß, was sie nicht happy geworden, Mina Kotze, Ella Kotze, bis in der Nähe von Yisrael, Noel. Und Yisrael nach Hoch mit der Lahr. Und mit der Cashapp Miuchoda zu Kol in Yoni Ramba.
With materials from the Living Archive, established by the Rohr Family Foundation.